Hello class, welcome to my classroom. So in this video we'll be talking about Raiden Shogun as she has her rerun alongside Kokomi, which started a good few days ago. So this will be essentially part 1 of my video series regarding Raiden Shogun's constellations as well as her weapon, the Engulfing Lightning. So for the first part, we will be going through her C0 to C3 analysis. So fortunately, I do have Raiden up to C3, but for the most of this video, we will be mainly talking about her C2 as that is the most cost-effective constellation for her, as you'll find out in a bit. And for part 2, we will be talking about is Engulfing Lightning her signature weapon worth getting. So without further ado, let's begin. So to start off with, we will be showing the team comp for this video, and we're mainly going to be talking about her Mono Electro Hypercarry Raiden composition, which consists of Raiden, Sarah, Bennett, and Kazuha. So I'm just showing you the builds that we have, and there's not really much to talk about in that sense, so you can pause the video just to have a look and see. And here, for team buffs from the supports, so I've put them all on this page so it's easy for you to see. We have Sarah's attack increase of 592, Kazuha's Ascension 4 passive, which gives us a total of 37.2 electro damage bonus upon triggering an electro swell reaction, while at the same time, because he has the Viridescent Venera artifact set 4-piece, we have the enemy electro damage resistance also lowered by 40%. And last but not least, we have Bennett with his Fantastic Voyage, which gives us a good amount of attack bonus of 1079, and as well as him having the Noblesse Oblige 4-piece set, giving us a 20% attack bonus for 12 seconds as well. Now, before we move on to the calculations, the damage and so on, we need to talk about something relatively important here, and it's about the resolve gained. And there will be a difference between C0 and even C1, as you'll see right here. So we'll first take a look at the C0 option of this slide, where for C0 Raiden, the resolve multiplier is 0.2 for all members. So for every energy used in a burst, Raiden will get 0.2 stacks for each energy consumed. So for this case, we have Sarah, Kazuha, and Bennett with 80 energy, 60 energy, and 60 energy cost elemental bursts respectively. And so the resolve stacks, Sarah will give Raiden 16, Kazuha and Bennett will give Raiden 12 each, totaling an amount of 40 resolve stacks. And of course, during the rotation, you might get some instances of obtaining particles, as you can see from her Ascension 1 passive, when nearby party members gain elemental orbs or particles. Chakra Desiderata gains 2 resolve stacks, and this can occur once every 3 seconds. So getting 2 instances of this Ascension 1 passive during the rotation is possible, but maybe banking on just one. So your total resolve stack for Raiden at the end of the rotation will be around 44. Now, if you move on to C1 and above Raiden, her Constellation 1 passive, Chakra Desiderata, will gather resolve even faster. When Electro characters use the elemental burst, the resolve gained is increased by 80%, and when characters of other elemental types use their elemental bursts, the resolve gained is increased by 20%. So we have the resolve multiplier here, which I've calculated for you guys. So Electro increases that 0.2 by 80% effectiveness, giving Raiden 0.36 resolve stacks per energy consumed when using burst. And for non-Electro characters, we multiply the base resolve multiplier of 0.2 by an increase of 20% to give Raiden a 0.24 resolve multiplier for non-Electro characters. So we then input these into the calculations, and so with Sarah, Kazuha, and Bennett, Raiden will obtain 28.8 14.4 and 14.4 respectively, totaling a 57.6 resolve gain. When if you put this into consideration that her max resolve stack is 60, and during the rotation we will be guaranteed one instance of Essential 1 passive thanks to the Kazuha Bennett combo. So for example, you do apply Electro, switch to Kazuha, you do E, and then you do Q, and because of that, whilst Kazuha is doing Q, he will be picking up an elemental orb or particle, which will be 2 resolve stacks, and so 57.6 plus 2 is 59.6, essentially maximum resolve, which is very, very nice. So now that you see this, you can see that C1 definitely does have an impact in terms of resolve stacks, which can and will increase the damage of Raiden's elemental burst. Now, next slide, we'll be talking about the weapons in question for this video. So we have the Catch, R5 of course, which is technically free, obviously, you just need to farm for a bit, do some fishing. And then we have an R5 Deathmatch, which is, you know, essentially $50, 50 USD. And last but not least, we have R1 Engulfing Lightning, which is Raiden's best in slot weapon, which can cost you from either $0 if you get lucky, up to 500 if you're extremely unlucky. Now do note, for the following screenshots, we will be using 40 resolve for C0 and 60 for C1 and C2, but I will be showing some damage calculations for C3 as well. Furthermore, all the builds that I used for this video aim for at least 250% energy recharge and 70% critical rate during elemental burst. Also, the website is still working on C0-C3, so I don't think the crit damage bonus is applied here, but I believe that it shouldn't affect the resulting numbers that much, as it applies to every build. Alright, so for our first part, we have the C2 R1 Engulfing Lightning, and this is the build that I've used, as you can see on the bottom left, and then the top right is just some extra stats showing the C2 damage for, you know, all the hits and stuff, as well as extra data here if you're interested in. But as you can see, C0 does 182k, C1 gives you a 14% improvement in damage of her initial hit, bringing it up to 207k, and then for C2 we get a 43% increase in damage from C1, giving us nearly 300k damage. And so if you go from C0 to C2, that is a total of 63% damage increase. And so we'll move on to the C2 R5 Catch. So if you compare the damage real quick, as you can see, you know, the damage difference isn't that much. C0 for Engulfing Lightning is 182k, C0 for R5 Catch is 172k, nearly 173, so only 10k damage difference. And then for C1, you have 207k for R1 Lightning and 197k for R5 Catch. So for the most part, you can see that the difference in damage is around the 10 to 20k. And if you take a look at the improvement in damage, it's still the same, 43%, and then 63% for C0 to C2. Now, of course, you guys are going to argue that the builds that I used are different for Engulfing Lightning and R5 Catch, which could affect the damage comparisons, but fortunately for you guys, we'll go through the build in a moment, but this is just a overview of the damage increases. So for C0 to C1, we see a 14% damage increase, C1 to C2, we see a 43% damage increase, and then for C3, for R1 Engulfing Lightning, it's 350k damage with an 18% increase in damage compared to C2. And then for the orange and red, that is basically the damage increase from C0 to C2 and the damage increase from C0 to C3. And then if we take a look at R5 Catch, you notice that the damage increases are actually the same, which is expected because each Constellation increases about the same amount, and the builds and the weapons don't actually affect what the constellations do. And so this is the conclusion. You can feel free to pause the video here, but we've already talked about the damage increases and how constellations improve your damage for the Raiden Hypercarry comp. Now this is what I was talking to you about, my conclusion part 2 for R1 Engulfing Lightning versus R5 Catch. The builds, as I've mentioned, were slightly different, but the rest are the same. And as you can see, for Engulfing Lightning and the R5 Catch, the only differences are the feathers and the circlets. And as you can see, I've calculated their critical values and their attack percent. And as you can see, Engulfing Lightning actually has slightly less attack percent increase and very slightly less critical value. And so the fact that they're actually near identical should mean that this is definitely a fair test in terms of comparing damage. And as you can see here, with near identical critical value and attack percent increases, the catch is only 5.01% worse in a hypercarry comp, or you can say that Engulfing Lightning is only 5.4% better than the catch. And so, is R1 EL a scam? Well, let's keep talking about this. So for part 3, if Raiden is used as a support or sub DPS and not a main DPS essentially for other comps, such as Eula Raiden, where Eula is I guess your main DPS, rank 1 Engulfing Lightning will be much stronger than the R5 Catch. Where as you can see, there's the example team here, Eula Raiden, Rosario Jean, and then the buffs that benefit Raiden specifically in this comp would be the Noblesse set and the Viridescent set. And this leads us to a conclusion where the R5 Catch is 16.5% worse, or rank 1 Engulfing Lightning is 19.8% better. So as you can see, when it comes to having I guess less buffs overall, you can see that the difference between the Catch and Engulfing Lightning does increase. But what's surprising here is that when I compare the Raiden National comp team with Engulfing Lightning and the Catch, even though that the buffs that benefit Raiden are, different and you get more attack, the difference in damage between Lightning and the Catch are actually still the same, where the Catch is still 16.5% worse and Engulfing Lightning is still 19.8% better. Alright, so just for an extra section here, this is regarding the R5 Deathmatch. If you take a look at the C0-C3 damage when the proc of the passive is 2 enemies or above, you can see that the build itself, the performance actually does a little bit worse than the R5 Catch. Which is pretty surprising considering if you were to spend $50 in total to R5 the Deathmatch, the performance of it isn't actually as good as an R5 Catch. So for those free to play not going for Engulfing Lightning, be sure to start fishing if you haven't done so already. However, if you're up against one enemy, the performance of the R5 Deathmatch is slightly better than the R5 Catch. So, it's pretty much a give or take. Against multiple enemies, the R5 Catch does better, but against bosses, single enemies, the R5 Deathmatch is slightly better in performance. But of course, we have another conclusion. This is regarding the energy restoration. So because even though damage-wise, Engulfing Lightning doesn't improve it much, the ER you have is significantly higher, compared to the other builds. But will it be a big difference? So first things first, I've put out the necessary information that you need in regards to her energy restoration, and at level 10 skill, the Musou Ishin energy restoration is at 2.5, and this can proc up to 5 times. And this is during her elemental burst, where he switches to the sword and damages enemies with it for 7 seconds. You can proc the Musou Ishin Energy Restoration of 2.5 energy 5 times. And for her Ascension 4 passive, each 1% above 100% energy recharge that the Raiden Shogun possesses grants her, for each 1%, a 0.6% greater energy restoration from Musou Ishin, as well as 0.4 electro damage bonus, but the second part we're not too worried about. We're focused on the first bullet point. And so I've given the stats here just for you guys, you don't need to look around. The Engulfing Lightning build gives her 294.7% total energy recharge after using her elemental burst, which gives her a whopping 117% energy restoration from energy restoration increase from Musou Ishin. So you'll be looking around 5 something per proc. And then we have the R5 catch build, has 260% ER on the dot, which gives us a 96% energy restoration increase. And last but not least, we have the R5 Deathmatch build, which is a 251.7% energy recharge, which is a 91% energy restoration increase. So as you can see, although we do have a much higher energy recharge with Engulfing Lightning compared to the others, the differences between the energy restorations of each weapon, isn't as much as you'd expect. And because of that, I've calculated the total energy restored 5 procs max, and we have Engulfing Lightning build gives you around 27 with max procs. Catch gives you 24.5 energy and max proc, and the R5 Deathmatch build gives you nearly 24 energy at 5 procs. So there's a 3 energy difference between the Catch and Engulfing Lightning, and a nearly 4 energy difference between Engulfing Lightning and R5 Deathmatch. So this information is, I guess, only useful to those that, want to min-max and want to exactly calculate how much energy they get and see what kind of energy recharge they want. But in terms of, energy gain in general, the amount of difference that the Engulfing Lightning gives compared to the others doesn't seem to be significant enough for it to be, that good. So we've reached near the end of the video, and so what is the point of getting R1 Engulfing? And here are my takes on it. It looks good on Raiden. That's the first thing, it's a signature weapon, so obviously you can get it for aesthetic reasons. Number 2, so you can use the catch on Xiangling, because the catch is very good on her, because Xiangling wants recharge, as well as her Q doing big damage. And last but not least, her 3, slightly better energy restoration whilst doing slightly better damage. And that's pretty much about it for the R1 Engulfing. So if you guys have, differing opinions, or if you agree and stuff like that, do let me know down in the comments below. And apologies guys, I do have a confession to make. I actually do not have the R5 catch yet, which is why I showed the damage calculations for R5 Deathmatch. And as you saw, it basically performs identically to the R5 catch with my current artifact, so I can still compare in the game by using Deathmatch versus Engulfing in a future video. That's part 2. So in any case guys, thank you for taking part, taking a look at my class. Hopefully you've learned something, or the data that I've shown were understandable, not too difficult. But if you do have any questions regarding my class, do let me know down in the comments below. I'll be sure to respond, ensuring that you do at the end understand what has went on in this video. In any case, it's been your boy Nitrostorm. Thank you for taking part in my class.